Welcome everyone back to our YouTube live stream. We have Riku and Tunna here with us today. I've been traveling a lot recently, and as we all know, traveling can be very stressful. Do you have any tips on how to make uncomfortable travel more comfortable?
Well, one of the basic tips quite many people use is that get drunk. But it's on long term, it's not a good idea. We've been using that medicine sometimes, but always it ended up in a disaster. So I wouldn't recommend getting drunk. I think one of the main things or tips, skills we use is that we pack really well. We have things with us. For example, fluids. We have food. We have always food, even though they would give you some food in the airplane or train or whatever. We have food and drinks always. I think that's the most important thing, that you never get hungry or thirsty.
Do you pack your own food because there's some certain kind of foods that are better for traveling?
I definitely, I pack my own teas whenever I go somewhere. Even if I go to Japan, I have my own green tea with me.
Okay.
Because green tea is my energy. So maybe my advice would be have your favorite things that keep you awake or then put you to sleep, whatever it is, and then keep the next day off if you can, and rest that day. It's actually whenever we go somewhere, we have a resting day, and that's really important to balance your sleep.
Definitely, especially if you fly.
Okay.
It's very, very stressful, and of course, more the time zones, more stressed you are, more you lose your energy. If you're gonna travel by train, it might be easier, might be more simple. Perhaps you don't need that much rest after that, but still, it's better to counter that. So, don't make too tight schedule. That's the other big tip.
Absolutely, take life easy.
Exactly.
I usually use a strategy where I try to sleep all the time as much as I can, wherever I can. I don't know, is that like a working thing, or does that kind of mess up your like routines or rhythms?
Of course, you have those all kinds of even gadgets to get into the good rhythm back after the trip. But I would say I also would like to rest as much as I can. Even if the rhythm would go a little bit worse that way. Anyway, you need a lot of rest. One thing I always think when I travel far is that why do we come to such a far place to be so goddamn busy? Like, why don't we take it more easy? Good example, we were just speaking of traveling in India. People travel to India and they want to see everything. Okay, that's quite obvious because it's a great place, but there's no point. It's like a continent. It's huge. There's no point in rushing into all places on a one trip. You can go there 10 times. Or more like if you center more in the one good spot, it's much more interesting, I think.
Absolutely. So you've been speaking today here at the Biohacker Summit. Can you tell our audience what are your top most important hacks or tips that you'd like to share with everybody? Many of them maybe didn't hear your speech.
Well, we didn't speak that much about hacking ourselves, but more about hacking the world. Like, we are on a constant change, of course. The whole human history is full of changes, but some changes are bigger than others, and now we are going through a big change. We call it interregnum, like a time between two kings. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen and how, but it means that we are in the midst of a sustainability crisis, huge crisis, and there's a lot of codependency, but we don't actually, and interdependency, we don't actually understand it really well, but there's growing tensions as well. And then, of course, technology, which will change everything, but we don't know when and how. So these three things are the big megatrends which we need to hack somehow.
Yeah, and the thing is, you really have to learn in the future, because many jobs and works are going to vanish in the future. So even things that people are learning now in schools, they will vanish after 10 years, maybe 20 years. There are only like 80% of the jobs that are now, even maybe 50%. So you have to be able to learn all the time new things. So that's the best tip for the future.
Keep an open mind and keep learning, which is, I guess, what biohacking is all about.
Exactly.
We have a question from our live stream audience about fear. You mentioned fear. What do you think is the most important thing to learn from fear? We all have fear of various kinds, but what should we be taking from it?
Yeah, to get conscious about your fear, so that your fear is not taking you to places. When you become conscious of your fear, you understand that this is fear. It's only fear. It's an emotion. So the time when you become conscious of your fear, then you can actually learn how to be with the fear. Yeah.
Exactly. And the more you confront your own fears, more you will learn about them. That's like mastering any skill. It needs like doing it again and again and again. And that's what we need to do with the fears as well. And mostly fears are maybe not illogical, but they have reasons which, if you split them up and look at it really consciously, you realize that the fear is almost always based on not having actually information. Lack of information makes you fear things. When you get the information, you quit being afraid. And the other tip would be collect more information so that you wouldn't need to be so scared.
So in a way, becoming more conscious, you're kind of already halfway there to overcoming your fears. It's probably not more complicated than that.
Exactly. And we are always fearing again when we go to places, even though we've been in dangerous and kind of like risky places in our lives quite many times. But still, if you've been there before, you've gone through it, it's easier the next time.
You talked about change. There's so much changing. It's changing so quickly. It's a speed nobody can really keep up with or predict. Do you have any tips for how we can adapt to that quick change that's happening?
Well, I would say, like Tunna said, about the learning to learn. That's one big thing, because we don't really know what kind of skills will be important technologically. But what we do know is that things which has to do with human connection, like empathy, for example, even in the times of robotization, we will need those skills. Creativity is about making mistakes, basically. A small scar somewhere is actually the whole secret of the beautiness. And machines don't do that. And that's why those are things I think we should flourish as humans in times of technology revolution.
So man will always have the advantage over the machine, you're saying, in a way.
That's what I believe.
Do you think that our education systems right now are set up in a way that would foster children being empathetic, creative, and if not, what should we be doing as parents or individuals? Our
problem globally is that the whole system. It's a very good question. But our problem is that it's very unequal. There's a lot of people who basically can read, but then they can't really read and understand. And they are very far from getting necessarily schooled for this kind of technological change. But then again, in kind of like societies like Finland, who are like in the top list of PISA surveys and stuff like, managing really well. We have problems in our schools of how to make our kids ready for these kind of changes. I think it's a huge challenge. Very good question.
Yeah, but it's already going on, and it's so great to see that the education system is changing a lot.
And of course, like events like this are important in getting people to be aware of these kind of things, like new things, science, and change.
Thank you, Tunna and Riku, for being with us here at the Biohacker live stream summit. We'll be back for more later. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.